Hello, everybody. Uh, these last few days have been a little difficult for my family and I. Uh, my grandfather, Maurice Bennett, passed away last weekend on the 21st. And the whole last weekend has been nothing but an emotional roller coaster for all of us. And I'm going to tell you some of the things he did throughout his entire career. When he was a kid growing up, his family was so poor and they didn't make much money. His mama Dolly had a job working at a sewing factory, and I don't know what his daddy did. I mean, I've heard about what his dad did. I just forgot about it. And his mom and daddy were really strict, and I can tell you something funny. Well, first of all, he always had to get up early in the morning and work out in the field, and couldn't go to school and get an education half the time. But this is where the funny story comes along. There was one time he had gotten in trouble for something, and his mama got on his butt, and she grabs the gun and goes in his bedroom, and he's hiding under the bed, and she says, "Come out of there right now. Right now." And so then he finally came out, and boy, oh boy, he got his butt tore up good. And throughout his Navy career, whenever he was on the ship, none of the ships had air conditioning in it at the time. It was so hot. Oof. And you always had to eat fast whenever you worked in the military. So later on, when he was still in the Navy, he bought a house in Rhode Island and raised 6 children. And it was hard raising 6 kids on him. And every Saturday was cartoon day at the house that he lived in up there in Rhode Island. And in 1979, he came back to Georgia, and he started working for Miller Brewing Company, where they made Miller beer, or Miller Lite, I should say. And then in 1980, he and his cousin Norman, they were hanging out one day, and he's like, "Let's go on down to the VFW." And the VFW is like a club where you can dance to music with friends and family. And this is where my grandmother came in the picture. So anyway, they're sitting at the table talking and eating a couple of snacks. And he says, "You see that young lady over there? I work with her. Her name's Linda, and I think she had just gotten divorced." He says, "Go on over there and see if you can ask her for a dance." And he's like, "All right." So he gets up and goes to the other, walks over to the other table, and somebody else grabs her to dance. And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Well, I lost my chance." So then she goes back to sit down, and then he tries to walk back over again, and somebody else grabs her, and he's like, "I'm going to put an end to this." So then, after that happened, he walks over to where she's sitting at and introduced himself to her. And plus, my great-grandparents were there too. Her daddy, which is my great-grandfather, and her mama, which is my great-grandmother, they were there. And I wasn't around at the time, but I sure wish I could have been. Anyway, my grandma's daddy was in the Army, and he was a heavy alcoholic for a while, and he was very miserable. With whenever he and his first wife were together. So then, after they met, they got in the car and had went out to dinner, and my grandma had ordered a drink, and all of a sudden, she got sick and had to go to the bathroom. When back at the place where they first met, and come to find out, she had drank too much alcohol, and so after they met, they left the place, and all of a sudden, my grandpa gets a engagement ring and says, "Will you marry me?" And she said yes. And so they got married on December 18th of 1980. And then, after a while, she couldn't put up with him, so they were only married like a few months, and she decided to leave and go off somewhere else. And he's like, "Well, dang, has she divorced me?" So anyway, 2 years later goes by, and they got back together and remarried, and they bought him a house in Albany, and the house, from what I've heard, it was infested with cockroaches, and that's one of the reasons why they moved away from there. So then, years later, they bought a house in Warner Robins, and then my grandpa went to work out on the base as an equipment specialist. And then in 1990, my grandfather purchased some property, and the property that he purchased was the place that I lived at, and before I moved over here to this house. And the property was purchased on March 22nd of 1990, and he paid $16,000 for it. So after the house was built, the house became a 2,102 square foot home. It has three bedrooms, 2 baths, or actually three bathrooms, and I think what he means by 2 baths is 2 showers. But anyway, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property, and the flooring that it had at the time was carpet. And so anyway, that's where they lived for a while until later on. In 1995, my grandmother graduated nursing school back on June the 10th. And then she began her nursing career. So I lived in the house for the first years of my life, from 1995 to 1998. And so then, 20 years later, my grandmother retired from work. And the first job that she had out on the Robins Air Force Base, she was a an occupational health nurse, and then she worked at other nursing jobs, and then went back to the base as a contractor at the same building that she was the occupational nurse. And on April 30th of 2018, she retired, and we decided to do some traveling together. So, sad thing is though, 5 years later, we had to stop traveling because of my grandfather having several health issues. He had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and was on AFib, and also had congestive heart failure. And then in 2024, my grandmother got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And she went through several treatments, and unfortunately, the chemo stopped working. So we had to call in hospice, and then on November 13th of 2024, she passed away at the age of 76. And so then, after she died, he started becoming a satanic person. He wouldn't let me hang out in the shop with my stepdad. He was always trying to control me. And once your grandson reaches into their 30s, you don't control them. You don't do that. That's not right. And I started having hatred towards him during the last few years of his life. Or the last year, because in August of 2025, I was kicked out of my home because he decided to act stupid and change the trust that my grandma had set up for me and put it in his family's name. And I was pissed. And so then, in August of 2025, I got a letter in the mailbox, an eviction letter, saying that I was going to get evicted from my own home. And I did not want that to happen. My grandmother wanted me to have that house. I wanted to honor her wishes, that I would take care of the house. And his son is trying to sell the house, and I don't want that. I want my house back the way I had it. A few years ago, I got me a good step-in shower installed in that place because of my disability. And all of a sudden it gets taken away from me, man. What the crap? And the reason why I was kicked out of my own home too is because my grandfather kept being agitated and fixated on driving. when he wasn't supposed to. And this happened back whenever we first moved in over there on the road that I lived on. And he also became a pathological liar too, because he wasn't supposed to go out driving, and when he came back to the house, he hit my stepfather's car, and he was mad, and so my aunt had to get on the phone and talk to him. And whenever she told him that he needed to stop driving, boy oh boy, he didn't like that at all. And he's like, no, you leave me alone. I'll do what I want to do. You are not going to control me. You're not going to control my life. And it went to hell in a handbasket from there. And while he was going berserk on her, I had to yell at him. And I don't regret yelling at him. I never will regret yelling at him. But anyway, I told him, I was like, Grandpa, shut up. You were not getting behind the wheel of the dang car. And then finally, I just walked outside and slammed the friggin' door. And I was upset with him. And, man, I tell you what, man, it's been rough with dealing with him. And also with his non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that he had, he would also develop high levels of ammonia in his brain, and it would cause toxin buildup, and it would make him go into an altered mental state, which means not knowing where he is, and he would walk around naked in the house, and it was a bunch of crap having to deal with that. And so then he was still being agitated and fixated on driving, and my stepdad goes like, Maurice, you do not need to be driving. You are 92 years old, or 91. He was 91 at the time. What if you were to go out there and hit somebody? And so anyway, my stepdad went outside and disconnected the battery to his car, which was a 2017 GMC Acadia SLT2. And he got mad at him. He says, you put my car back in that driveway right now where it's supposed to be. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. You are not driving. And so then, after a while, he started getting all worked up over a gun. And my stepfather's like, Maurice, you cannot handle a gun. With the way you are right now, you cannot handle a gun. And so Anyway, we had to call the police and get them to take the gun away. So then my stepdad and my mom were arguing, and he's got to go. He's got to go. And so the sheriff pulls up in the driveway and takes him with him to have a mental evaluation done on him. And oh man, it was rough. So then, after a while, he decided to move out, and he was living in a assisted living facility over in Cordele, where he's from. And a couple months later or so, a sheriff pulls up in the driveway again, and I was getting an eviction letter saying that I was getting kicked out of my own house that my grandma wanted me to have before she died. And I didn't do a friggin' thing wrong. And I wish that I could get my house back right now. I really do. I was happy there, and I wanted to continue being happy there. If he would have left me the crap alone and let me live my life, I would still be living there right now, today. Anyway, so if you're able to, please rate, comment, or subscribe. And no negativity, please. Thank you.